Hello, 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 hello. Um, Nintendo X here, back again, with another vlog, I guess you could say. Now on Team Coast, that's exciting. Uh, I know a lot of you didn't know what to expect, but the big announcement I was hyping up on Twitter, and that's whatever. But it's Team Coast. We're gonna have Elements on board as our coach. It's the same 5+ members from GGU. Of course, Shifter's now back. We're really excited. And we're going to be moving to a gaming house soon. This might actually be the last vlog I do. It's only my second vlog I've ever really done, but it might be the last one I do before I actually move into the gaming house in Los Angeles. So that's exciting. My topic I wanted to hit today was Olaf. You may know me, big Olaf player. I love Olaf. He was nerfed recently. I guess not really recently. It's been weeks now. But he took a huge hit. If you remember, there is the undertow nerf, which was the nerf that made it so instead of the hard slow, it scaled up from like 16 to 40% or whatever. It now fades over the duration of 2.5 seconds, which kind of sucks. I want to talk about that first. All right, the undertow slow nerf. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's not no big of a deal. You know, undertow is still going to do shit tons of damage, which that's great. You can still do a lot of damage with your undertow. It's a very strong spell, but the follow up on it is just difficult." Olaf's not a champion that has gap closers, and you almost need to run Ghost on him as well. So his innate chasing not that special. His what he has differently, and this is where he's really different from other tanky kind of get to the backline champions. He doesn't have a gap closer. He has an ability that prevents any CC from stopping him from using his abilities and running at you. So that's the only leg up he has. And for that, nerfing him, he's one of those really difficult, touchy champions. If you nerf, he can just be way, way, way out of the meta. He'll just be terrible. And that's where he's at right now. He's in a really rough spot where he went from being very popular mid, or top lane, popular top lane, somewhat popular in the jungle. I myself attest by that. Very good jungler. To really, he doesn't have a place. He was always a pretty good 1v2er because he had his undertows. He's still probably a pretty good 1v2 champion. He's still probably pretty good in lane. But the follow-up and hunting people down is just not there. And you can always blame that on, well, there's new champions that do better stuff, like Zac can fly himself 2,000 yards or whatever. That's not the big deal here. The big deal for me is the undertow nerf. First and foremost, the slow fading over time is just bad. Good examples of abilities that fade over time with their slow are Wall of Pain and Tempest. I'm going to Google those right now. Wall of Pain, Karthus. And I want to take a look at the slow on it and how long it fades over. Wall of Pain, okay. Slow is 40, scaling up to 80%. Very strong spell. Obviously, it doesn't do damage like Undertow. You can't follow it up with multiple Undertows, like Wall of Pains. Like, you can't run up, pick up your Wall of Pain, throw it again. That'd be pretty cool. But it reduces a hard amount over 5 seconds. That's the fade time on it. Which is a very, very good... You still feel really the hard amount of the slow over 5 seconds, because you're still going to feel that 80% for a good half second. It's going to slow the hell out of you. You know, you've all played against Karthus. It sucks. It hurts. I'm going to search Lee Sin Tempest. I really should have looked these up beforehand. It's actually Cripple. But this slow, it's 20 scaling up to 60% again. A little bit stronger than Undertow. This scales over 4 seconds. So yeah, you got 4 and 5 seconds there on Tempest, and you got the other one, Wall of Pain. It's pretty high slows actually. You got Undertow, which scales from 24% up to 40%. That's 4% for level, you do the math. And it decays over 2.5 seconds. Again, I guess Riot's reasoning behind it was, well, you're going to pick it up in 2.5 seconds anyway and throw it again. So it's not that big of a deal. But the thing is, it's a huge deal. Because they're not feeling that 40% for more than a quarter of a second. And it's fading, and before you know it, you're back up to full speed again. Because within, let's call it 1.5 seconds, you're only slowed by 20% at max rank. 20% slow, that's pretty minimal. That's not very strong. You're not going to feel that at all. So you're really missing out on like a second and a half, in my opinion, of hard CC that you used to feel from Undertale with that slow. It was deadly. It hit multiple targets. It was really strong. It was a great chasing tool, even a decent initiation tool at some points. So the missile speed still the same. All that's still the same. Also, all they did was they changed it to slow over time. But the problem, obviously, it slows over 2.5 seconds. That's much shorter than the fade time you have for the other abilities with the fade over time slows, and even slows for less. The only leg up it has is you can pick it back up. It reduces the cooldown. Cooldown starts at 8 seconds. You can get that down to like 5 or something with 40% CDR, and then 4.5 seconds off when you pick it up. So really, the downtime is really all it has over any of these abilities, is you can keep spamming it and spamming it and spamming it. But this hurts a lot for if you're a jungler and you're ganking, because a lot of the time you're going to be running in from the side, and you're going to be tossing your Undertow. You're going to be expecting to hit that, and you're going to keep following it up. But by the time you go up to pick your Undertow, they could be 50 to 100 units further than they were. And that's very important, especially as a jungler who has no gap closer, who runs ghosts, really. You don't really see him run any flash Olafs unless you maybe have to deal with like Jarvan or Anivia, something that can wall you in. So really, it's hurting his ganking power a lot, and that ganking power turns into reflecting the chase power in team fights. So that's huge for him. That makes him even more kiteable, really. Which hurts, but it's whatever. Let's move on to the Vicious Strikes nerf. That nerf just like, it's probably the more annoying nerf, but probably the least felt one. The cooldown, I believe, went from 12 to 16 seconds. This nerf was probably a little more needed than the other ones, because it gave him, for 6 seconds he got lifesteal, spell vamp, attack damage, which is a very good sustainable stat, and a stat that a lot of other champions have for, say, the top lane of the jungle. You got Nocturne with his Umber Blades, you have Aurelia with his hit 10 style or whatever. So it's just another sustain spell that probably did need a touch-up. That's completely fine with. The other point I want to make is Ragnarok. They didn't nerf the active at all. They just took the passive from it, the armor pen you used to get, and they put that into the active. And, it's another nerf that, that doesn't look like much, but it's basically you're only reaping these armor pen benefits for 6 seconds. That's not a big period of time when the cooldown's 100 seconds. Pretty much without CDR, but of course you can build CDR on Olaf. So you like CDR on Olaf. So you like reckless swinging people every 2 seconds. But still, you only get 6 seconds of armor pen. And chances are, in your Ragnarok, when you blow that, you're probably not quite going to even be on somebody at that point. You usually do that to block the first wave of CC as you're ghosting in. Let's say you're ghosting in, you're chasing a Caitlyn. I love chasing Caitlyn as Olaf. It's so easy. You're ghosting at Caitlyn, alright, then a Zyra just tosses her strangling roots, and then once those roots are about to hit you, you Ragnarok. It's yeah, but you're still running at Caitlyn because she eat away. And then she flashed away, so you have to run for another second, and then you throw your Undertow. And then before you know it, the spell's down, and you're still trying to battle Caitlyn, and you die. So, really, you might only reap a couple seconds or a couple autos of that armor pen. It's really rough. It's not enough to feel. If it was 6 seconds of a giant ass amount of armor pen, you'd probably feel it. But no, this is an amount that used to be on a passive. That's how I don't want to say weak, but how basic it was, how general the number was. And you see numbers like this on Jace, it gives passive armor and magic resistance when you're in his R form, which they took off of Nidalee and Elise, which Jace will probably see next, to be honest. But that's beside the point. It's just one of those numbers that it doesn't make sense on the active because it's kind of weak and doesn't flow with the rest. It was cool that stat's there, that there's that stat for the armor pen, but if it's on the active, there's really no need for it. It shouldn't be there. If Riot doesn't want to give him a passive stat by leveling up Ragnarok, which, that was kind of one of the incentives to leveling it up still, was, I get that bonus 10 armor pen per level, that's pretty cool. Because other than that, the stats don't really change, if I recall. You have that for the constant 6 seconds, the mana cost goes down a little bit, the cooldown doesn't even go down. So really, all you're really benefiting from leveling up your ultimate is 6 more seconds of 15 armor and magic resist, and 6 more seconds of 10 more armor pen. Like, what? Like, those stats are so. It should feel more, right? Like, in my opinion, it should. It's an ultimate. The fact that it gets like this giant amount of power at 6, and then from there it kind of trickles off. Like, that doesn't feel right to me. So I don't agree with the armor pen on the active change. I think that's really silly. So what I'd propose, I don't want to say to fix Olaf, but he needs some changes at this point. Like, he's always been kind of tricky to fit in competitive play because he's been out for 3 years now. Like, 3 entire years this champion's been released. I saw Freak Spotlight from it from like 2010. Freaking hilarious. Like, the funniest thing I've ever seen because it's so funny. He's running like a bot lane with Blitzcrank. It's whatever. But first and foremost, I think Undertow, it needs to get its full slowback. And the reason for that is because it's really his only chasing tool. Because you're going to have to run Ghost, and like everything else is pretty much preventative. Like your Ragnarok, it's preventative. It prevents other CCs from stopping you. So all you have is really your Undertow in terms of like chasing somebody down. Because you got your auto attacks with vicious strikes and reckless swing. That's cool. I suggest that they give him the slow back, or they make the slow fade over a longer duration. If Undertow faded over 3.5 or maybe even 4 seconds, I think you'd really feel it more, and I think it's only fair that it would. It might be a little too strong though. I don't know how to really run the numbers, but I think it needs to fade. If they're dead set on it fading over duration, it's be over a longer time than 2.5 seconds. Because right now it's pretty. It's, as I pointed out earlier, it's a low time in my opinion for a slow of that nature. Secondly, I propose you just take the armor pen off of Ragnarok. Take it off the active, and give him another active for the ultimate. Like, for example, food for thought, back, I don't know how long you guys have known Olaf, but back his old active was, it gave him reduced damage, like, per source of damage. It would reduce it by, like, 10 or 15 or whatever. And that I thought it was extremely, extremely cool and clutch for stopping, like, ignite damage. Because it would cut down ignite damage by like 15 per tick, and you'd only feel like half the ignite. It was actually a really, really cool counter to it that I'm kind of sad it's gone. I would propose that you give Olaf back the reduced damage per source of damage. It would allow burst damage to still hurt him, which burst damage always has, but it would cut down on like random stupid sources of damage all hitting him and him taking crap tons of damage. That would cause his ultimate to be kind of a completely defensive fighting mechanism, which I think is what he needs. It needs to be completely defensive in terms of blocking CC, giving him armor, like everything he needs all in one. Like, that's very nice. A character like Trundle has that. Of course, he doesn't have the reduced CC, but he gets his health, he gets his armor, he gets healing, and he saps armor and MR, and he gets it to himself. That's all the tank stats you need for that champion. I think that should be a similar how Ragnarok should work. To reciprocate that, you might need to nerf Reckless Swing. I'm surprised it's like the only ability that didn't get touched in the last kit. The true damage has always been strong. Actually, I think they did nerf the cooldown on it, like a patch before or something, to take it's taken off all levels. But I think it needs maybe a slight damage tune-up. The cost is pretty fair. It costs a pretty fair amount of health. But I think it should maybe scale a little less hard. Like right now it's 100 scaling up to 340, which is 60 damage scaling per level. I think it should scale down like maybe a little bit, like 55 per level. That would take a total of 20 damage off it on max rank. Just a tiny tweak. Because I think you have to kind of tweak it a little bit to make sure Olaf's okay. Because if you give him all these next benefits, he might be a little over the edge. So that's kind of my opinion on how Olaf is right now. He's kind of stuck in an odd place in Season 3. These have just been some of my thoughts on Olaf. And thanks for listening. Been kind of ranting, but, yeah. I don't know how to end these at all. Holy crap. I just love ranting. See you guys. Thanks.